All right, Father, so what's the deal? Can I take these vaccines without it killing my conscience? Coming up on A Moment More. So much division, so many voices, so many sources. You know, when it comes to things like vaccines, it's become difficult just to know where to go. For us, though, as Catholics, we have the great thing called the magisterium. And the magisterium is something that very much helps us, even if we don't understand all the pieces and we know all these different pieces are happening. Take this example of vaccines. At least I can listen. So, for example, the people who are trained and live and work in the tradition of the church can give me help. When it comes to these vaccines, they said the Pfizer and the Moderna ones are acceptable for Catholics to take. So at least I can always turn to them and say, okay, here we go. It's coming in. Good. I hear it. The bishops echo it. Your individual bishop, echoes it. So then it's easy for us to say, okay, this is the answer. But today, in A Moment More, what I want to say is, what are some of the principles that are behind that? What are some of the principles that allow us to look at some of these vaccines or look at some of these things and say, this is acceptable for us to deal with? One of the words in our moral theology is called cooperation. So if I'm building something and I cooperate with somebody, we're working together. But when it comes to cooperation in an evil act, the church will say, well, we have to look in, working with another person that is going to accomplish an evil act. And so we say, what does that look like? Where is the line where I'm far enough away, I'm remote enough that I'm not culpable for this? And so we break this into two sections. One is formal cooperation and one is material cooperation. So in the formal cooperation is, this is an evil act. I'm going to cooperate in it, and I intend it, and this is what I want. Never good. Never good. We can never do that. There's a little lady walking across the street. She has a bunch of money falling out of her purse. I'm going to go over and take it. Well, that is formal cooperation with me and my friend who decide to go and do that and take the old lady's money. Don't do that. Not good. But that is a formal cooperation with the act of stealing something, and you had the intention the whole time of doing it. The other side of this is what we call material cooperation. So material cooperation, I don't intend for this evil action to happen, but in some way, shape, or form, I may play a part in this. And so even though I may not intend for this to happen or be carried out, I may be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. And so the church divides that, or our tradition, our moral theology divides that into two, like really close, so immediate cooperation, like this bad action could not happen if it weren't for me helping it. So take a Catholic hospital. If a Catholic hospital is allowing, abortion and euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide and direct sterilizations and things like that on its campus, and it's providing all the utensils and all the different pieces to be able to happen, that's an immediate cooperation. Formal cooperation, and the church says that's not allowed. Now, take something more remote. Now we get even more remote, and we look at something and we say, there was a big one back in the day, I think it was with Starbucks, and Starbucks was giving a lot of money to pro-choice, and it might have been like Planned Parenthood things or something like that. But whatever they were doing, people were like, well, I'm not buying coffee at Starbucks. That's when like the Mystic Monk coffee and all these different people were going to different places to get coffee. And the question is, well, how remote do I have to be from this action to be a part of, like, culpable for it? So if I'm my intention is to buy a coffee, but in buying the coffee, I support a company that chooses to take its patron money and invest it in such a thing that opens places, that hires doctors who then commit an evil act. It gets more and more remote. So eventually you get to a point where you're not responsible for this. Like I can't decide every company, everything that I choose. Now, I can try and be able to invest in places that aren't directly involved in a lot of the things that I don't believe in. That's good. And I encourage you to look into that and investigate. But there comes a certain time when you are far enough away that it's not as culpable for you. that it's not like a direct nail into your soul. What we do have to worry about is this thing, last word, appropriation. So the appropriation, like the fruits and byproducts of something that is not good, that we've allowed to be in our life and be around. And so it makes it seem like it's good. And so we have to be careful of these bad things seeping into our soul. It's kind of like, a lot of times we talk about violent video games, that nothing's actually really happening in the video game, but it's inculcating people. It's creating this culture to where certain violence is accepted. And so we say, be careful of that. Don't appropriate that into your to your being. So whenever we have to be careful that, the places we support, things like that, when they're dealing in very direct evil actions, we should be careful in what we support in that. So when it comes to the vaccines, this idea of cooperation is something that they were working with. If it's directly from a fetal line, like if it's created directly from this, and we have options to things that were not created directly from it, then we should go with the options that aren't directly from that vaccine. So there are more vaccines coming down the line, but the ones in the media were the Pfizer and Moderna. And so the bishop said, listen, these are acceptable in this moment. Even though they were tested later on with certain fetal lines. You can look more on this. For example, all these are actions that are going to happen. Like this, are we cooperating in something that's about to happen? Janet Smith wrote an article, Dr. Janet Smith, about how that we have to keep that into perspective. These are things that have already happened. And so our view is, does this continue this cycle or structure of sin? So we have to be careful on how we support that. All that to say, these are some of the principles in our lives. We have to look and see how it is that we cooperate with something. How close are we to it? Do I intend an evil action? Because if I intend it, it's never good. But even if I don't intend it, is it only going to happen because I'm there holding something, allowing it to happen, even though I'm not doing it? Am I the one driving the car at the bank robbery? Like, is it only going to happen because I'm there to help it? Or is it an evil action that is so far distant that it's impossible for me to control? But even with those, we have to be very careful that we don't appropriate these evil things and allow them around us and pretend like they don't exist. No, even when we have vaccines that we are allowed to take, we have to still advocate for the defense of the unborn, advocate against abortion, protect life in all its stages. So this is a little longer, but hopefully these are key words that you can look up, you can Google when it comes to material and formal cooperation, as it helps you look into the future and how you can apply this to your lives. All right, we'll see you next time on A Moment More.